Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic and also Team Gemini, which is the topic of today's video. We're going to be looking at the Gemini versus Tantrum fight from Battlebots. So if you have not seen Battlebots episode 7, go away, watch that video, come back, and then watch this one because we're going to get into spoiler territory here for sure. Also, it is just a great episode in general, so yeah. Go away, watch that, come back, and then we'll have a chat about Gemini versus Tantrum. I'll just give you a sec to do that, and now we're going to actually do this. So, as with the previous fight video, I'm going to throw it back to us in the past, and we're going to have a chat about it, basically just there at Battlebots. This time around though, we're not filming in the pits because the audio on that was terrible, so this is in the hotel room there. And there's only the three of us because the rest of the team couldn't make it to this fight, so only the three of us that were actually involved in the fight are doing this fight breakdown. So I'll throw over to them. They can talk about how they think the fight went from their perspective. Obviously, things are different being in the box versus watching on TV. So then after all that's done, we'll come back here and I'll talk about any corrections that we need to make. And I'll also talk a little bit more about the damage that we took and put up some images of the post-fight Gemini condition. All right, so let's go back in time. Okay, so Tantrum fight. I guess we should start by talking a bit about like prep stuff going into the Tantrum fight. There wasn't a lot of prep work to do. There was a brand new weapon rebuild, which
that was a good bit of prep work.
That was a good bit of prep work. Yeah, but in terms of like actual structural stuff, there wasn't a whole lot that we had to do. Like, I guess new weapon can technically be considered structural, but I'm thinking more like chassis structural. There's a little bit of like chopping down side armor panels and things just so they didn't touch the floor anymore. Yeah, because that was killing your driving especially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so but that was all back in the other fight. Yeah, so we had to chop some of that stuff down and we had everything making weight, so that was alright. Yeah, and then Tantrum itself is it's a brick of a robot. Like, it's a full heavyweight at the size of a single Gemini, which...
Yeah. Smaller. We had each of our bots had a larger footprint than Tantrum.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, our armor sticks out quite far too. Like, if you strip the armor off a Gemini, like, they're about the same footprint. Yeah. Although we might be slightly longer, actually. I think our disc sticks out further than their robot sticks out. So,
They have a very low-angled wedge, too.
They do have a very low-angled wedge, and it's all articulating. We were quite happy when we looked at it the first time because they had the really thick steel aluminium fists on, and it couldn't angle up a whole lot, which meant that if we could high-side them, we could high-side them on the wedge, but going into this fight, they'd changed those to like thinner plastic ones, which, yeah, that wasn't good for us. It kind of killed some.
It allowed their front wheels to stay on the ground at all times. Basically.
Yeah.
And they put the plow on the front that was probably appropriate for taking on Tombstone.
Yeah, they put the thicker plow. Yep, they changed them out.
I mean, at the same time, that's kind of like a little like tip of the hat to us, right? Like, they was worried enough about our weapons to put on the Tombstone blades. So, I mean, you know, I'm not sure if they were worried about that so much, or if they just really wanted to put on a good show. But hey, we can take it. So,
our suspicion going into it is that the desire matching us up was to give a lighter weight target for Tantrum's puncher.
Yeah, to see if it would work.
Yeah, because I mean, so far, I mean, we don't know where and how all of Tantrum's fights are going to be laid out, but so far, it makes a good noise. It really makes a good noise, but, you know,
it's a different weapon design.
It is, yeah.
Always exciting for when they're staging these. They like different. Tantrum has always been a different bot.
Yeah, that's it. They keep getting in based on their design changes and everything. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it makes a really good noise when it shoots that fist or the spinning weapon out. I keep thinking about it as a fist because Tantrum is just all fist. Like, but yeah, it's not. It's actually just a snail tooth drum, basically. So,
the one thing that we had going for us is the snail-tooth drum sticks out like yay far outside of their really big wedge that they put on for us, so we were kind of happy about that. That gives them loads less teeth engagement. Yeah. So I guess we should talk a little bit about the actual fight and what happened in the fight. So very, very early on, I went in for a rush hit, managed to knock off one of the 3D printed fists, like just break the whole fist off, which was kind of cool. I thought I was just going to shatter the fist itself, but no, it just all fell off almost. And then I got high-sided on it, which, you know, I was really, really happy that we had a multi-bot at that point, because that would be a terrible way to lose a fight. Knock off a piece of decorative armor, essentially, and then get high-sided on it. But that was the one hit that we had on each other for that entire fight, is that you came over and knocked me off the fist, which was, like, that's what you're supposed to do as a multi-bot. That's the hits that we like.
Yeah, it was asked for.
Yeah, that's it. And it was controlled, and it was very well done. It was just one little tap, and there we go. Off we went. So, yeah. But...
A couple solid hits on the back end of Tantrum.
Yeah, we did get some solid hits on the back end of Tantrum.
Took a bite out of the wheel and.
Well, 2 wheels actually. I think we both got a wheel. But as with the last recap fight video, which I hope is the last recap fight video, we haven't rewatched these fights. Like, we're only talking about things from our memory of the fights, which.
It's hazy when you're in the box. It's surreal. So.
And from my position at the button hammers, a lot of this happened totally out of my view.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the button hammers are like that, though. You don't, when you're on the hammers, you don't get to be in the kind of leaned-in section that gives you a good view of the box. So, yeah.
Well, a better view.
A better view.
Yeah. There's good view.
Portions of the box you still can't see.
That's very true.
There, so.
Yeah, and actually, under the hammers is one of those points.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so from what we think we know at this point, we both got hits on the back wheels. We did some really good hits on the side panels, but we didn't really do a whole lot of damage to them, unfortunately.
They told us we sheared a bolt or two, but
Yeah,
not enough to dislodge anything.
I think we were like 3 or 4 bolts away from like actually breaking armor panels off, which, you know, if our weapons had continued to work for the whole fight, would have been a little different.
Yeah, we ran into the good old Gemini problem of our weapons do not stand up to putting out hits for 3 minutes. They eventually, something fails.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're almost heavyweight weapons inside, like, half-weight bots. Like, it just, there's not enough weight to support them almost, so, yeah.
Plus the one was an experimental
clutch
design.
That's true.
Which mostly worked for a little while.
Mostly worked until part of it just disintegrated.
Yeah, it worked until the clutch slipped, and then the clutch ate itself.
Yeah, that's it. And we still don't know where part of that is. It just like vanished inside the battle box somewhere. Yeah, they
got vacuumed up.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they're supposed to take the big bits and put them in a box and give them back to us, but yeah, it never materialized.
No, they don't give it. You got to go looking for
them.
Right. You got to go ask the guy to go dig through his box, and a lot of the bits are pretty small.
Right. Yeah. Well,
although going back through the box looking for lost washer did retrieve the Tantrum fist that you high-sided on.
Yeah. Well, we're good. That's good. We'd like to have that one because that was our first little bit of damage on Tantrum, and it was I guess our first. Well, it's the major piece of damage we did, right? There's a few scuff marks here and there, and like we said, we took out a little chunk of their wheels, but
well, we knocked off an ear, but they re-scavenged it for themselves. So they wouldn't give it to us because I don't think they
No. We waited long enough holding on to that fist. Let's just get them to sign it and then
that's
hang
true.
on to it. We'll say something about Tantrum's weapon.
Yeah. So Tantrum's weapon is an interesting one. You've got to be in exactly the right spot for them to hit you, realistically. And they did hit us multiple times.
Yeah.
And it's kind of unclear exactly how effective the spinner is versus the puncture, because some of the hits, at least from our perspective, when you got shunted by the weapon, it almost felt like the actual movement of the weapon was doing everything, like it was just kind of kicking you off a little bit, and the tooth on the drum wasn't getting all that much engagement on the actual robots themselves. Yeah.
It almost dented more than it ate or dug.
Yeah, it didn't catch far enough to throw the bot up, but it did definitely bend up our panels in a few interesting ways.
Yeah. So it does feel a lot more like a punch than a weapon hit, more than anything. It's a very interesting weapon design, and it's the first weapon ever to puncture one of our top or bottom plates, including from previous years. Nothing has ever got through those, even though they're what's the thickness on the top and bottom plates?
Quarter.
Yeah, so they're 1/4-inch alley, and nothing has ever got through those except for Tantrum, and it's put one little gash in there.
That little gash was enough to distort it enough to pop our drive power switch, our Waiachi switch out of place, which is always a scary thing for safety when they come in and they try to drop the key in the hole that says this turns off the robot and there's nothing under it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, safety was not happy about that.
No. This is the second time that's happened. So
it's the bad part about plastic mounting though too. So
yeah. But I mean, the good part is that it's not rigidly mounted to the frame and taking all of the shots.
Absolutely.
So
yes. Well, last time it wasn't the mounting so much, just the switch completely disintegrated. The last season, in the lucky fight.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a lot worse than having the plastic break. Because if we'd hard mounted it in that shot, those switches would be gone completely, probably. Like they would at least have been broken.
Yes. If the plastic mount hadn't given, then the switch itself would have given, because the switch is made out of the same stuff we're using to mount it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, they're also, a small, fast robot. Like, they were pretty fast around the box, too.
It's a very wedgy robot.
It's a very wedgy robot, for sure.
There's been a lot of skirting that wedge this year, I think, overall. As far as teams going kind of very wedge heavy versus weapon heavy, like like season 1, 2.
And we've had a couple of those against us, so that's one of those things. People will find ways to skirt rules. It's just
it's not skirting so much as a design choice, I guess.
Yeah,
it depends on what you're trying to go for, more or less.
That's it. I mean, Tantrum is definitely kind of, it seems to be a bit of a tank bot first.
Experimental weapon second.
Yeah. I mean, but
Which
then again,
is a cool weapon.
It's awesome. A very cool weapon.
Seeing how it moves and how they design that is pretty cool.
Yeah,
definitely.
But and also thinking about it, like you would have to build a tank bot to be able to contain the weapon slamming itself back and forth. Like, So I think but I probably did design a tank bot first, and then we're like, oh, this weapon would survive inside the chassis. So.
Well, their first version was designed to beat Tombstone, so they said, or
That's true.
whatever their plan was. I'm not sure. I didn't ask them, but just from watching the series or whatever.
Yeah, well, they wanted to go against Tombstone. That was the thing. That's why they got the grudge last season. Is that they all the way through they'd said we're here to fight Tombstone. And
they made that very clear.
Yeah. And they were like, no, our fists cannot be taken off even by Tombstone. Well, we all know how that worked out. So it does seem like they've always had that design intent to have something that could survive a Tombstone hit. So to do that, you have to be a tank, or you have to have a bigger weapon than Tombstone, I guess.
Well,
that's the Son of Waiachi approach, right?
That is the Son of Waiachi approach, but I don't think that I think it would fare pretty similarly against Tantrum, those two bots.
Yeah, I would say so. Sure. So. Cool. Anything else anybody wants to add about Tantrum fight?
I think our teamwork shone through a lot more in the Tantrum fight because we were not facing two opposing bots.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Gemini definitely works better against a single opponent rather than against two opponents, because at least this way, it's two halfweights versus one robot, not two halfweights versus two heavyweights. Like
Yeah, but it's still a tank bot.
It's still a tank bot.
If we can't, if we're just going to break our weapon on somebody's face, and even if we're durable enough to go the 3 minutes, the judges don't shine heavily onto robots that broke themselves.
No,
even if they did so for the right reason.
Yeah, it's very hard to win a judge's decision like that when you've got broken weapons. It's just, even if you did the damage yourself against them, it counts as damage for them because it's breakage on you. Like, it's just a thing. So, And you got a couple of rides on the screws too, right? You got flipped upside down and onto the screws a couple of times. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look, on the whole, it was a really, really fun fight. I mean, I don't think we could have done a whole lot better than what we did. So we just went out there and had a lot of fun with that. It was a great fight to go through. So
we came out of it a lot better than we could have hoped for. I mean, obviously, no damage is always the best, but
yes, yeah. We were worried we were going to get punched by that fist and just get ripped in half or something. So
you never know.
Yeah, that's it. So
they talk it up like it can do a ton of damage. But
Yeah,
they do indeed.
they're good talkers, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we kind of had like a bit of a roller coaster after that fight where we got the robots out of the fight and we're like, oh, that's a lot of damage. And then the next morning when we pulled them apart, we're like, this can be fixable. And then it kind of like swung back and forth over the day as we started repairing them and getting them ready to go back into the box. But I guess that's kind of combat robots a little bit. Although this is definitely the most swing I've ever seen in terms of like, wow, that's a lot. Oh no, we can just leave that in the robot type thing. Yeah, it was an interesting repair process, shall we say? Yeah, one of the Geminis definitely needs a bit of force to get the top plate back on, but that's alright. It survives. It's still driving around, so that's the best we can ask for, having taken damage in that fight. So yeah, cool. I reckon that's going to be it for the Tantrum fight. Yeah, I will see you in the next one.
Okay, so on the whole, we actually did a pretty good job at remembering the Tantrum fight. It's certainly easier to remember a whole fight when there's only 3 robots in the arena as compared to when there were 4 robots in the arena. It was a lot less chaotic, it was a lot easier to remember all of the bits and pieces that went on. Slight correction, I got stuck on the fist after like the 2nd or 3rd hit, and I kind of basically loosened the fist up, I guess, with the first couple of hits, and then I glanced off the wedge and landed on top of it. It kind of like fell off the robot in underneath me. It's a perfect little thing. If you go back and watch the fight again, you can kind of like almost frame by frame and see it like it's sitting on Tantrum, and I kind of come up this way and it just like rolls off and I go and land on top of it. And as I said at the time, very, very happy to be in a multi-bot team when that type of thing happens. Also, one thing I want to clear up that we didn't really talk about then and there, but it's a little bit difficult to tell what happened on the actual footage that was on the TV show. The armor on the black Gemini actually got busted up in the first kind of half a dozen or so hits with Tantrum. So the front armor at the front corner, it gets bolted on with rubber wobs that kind of shock mount the armor against the chassis. So any hits on the armor just kind of move the wobs around and don't transfer through into the chassis. Well, that's the theory anyway. However, in the first kind of half a dozen hits against Tantrum, those wobs sheared completely. So in kind of the early stages of that fight, if you actually look closely, you can see the armor wobbling on that corner because the whole, like everything is sheared. There's nothing holding it there anymore other than the fact that the armor is basically a U-shape. So that armor's kind of wobbling around all over the place, but it's sitting there quite happily. And then I get kind of pushed over towards the screws, and then as I drive back onto the camera view, the armor is all bent up out of shape. Now, what happens is, this is the screws here, I get driven straight into the screws with the weapon hitting the screws first. So the weapon and the screws just kind of collide a little bit and nothing really happens there. Then as I kind of back out and try and turn, I misjudge my turn and turn sideways, and the screws kind of nip the edge of the armor and just grab hold of it enough to bend the armor completely up like this. So the screws themselves did just the bend. They didn't do any damage to the actual mounting of the armor. All of that stuff was done in the collisions, like in the hits with Tantrum. Both my hits on him and his hits on me, everything just kind of worked to loosen up and break those rubber wubs. So that's what happened to that armor. The hazards do little bits and pieces, but you need to be softened up by your opponent first. So I did promise that we're going to talk about the actual damage and also to have some photos of that damage. So I'm going to start actually with what we've just talked about. So here are the rubber wobs at the front of the Black Gemini, or at least what was left of them after the fight. They just got completely sheared down the line. There's also some on the side as well, but I didn't take any photos of those. It looks exactly the same. And then of course here is a photo of the Black Gemini with that armor up and the weapon chain off and everything like that. This is the other thing, the weapon on the Black Gemini, I lost a bolt somewhere in amongst it. I'm pretty sure it got hit by Tantrum and sheared the bolt head off like in the weapon stack, which then allowed the weapon to wobble loose and break, and the chain broke in that exchange as well, I think. Although I'm not 100% sure, all I know is that got broken away in under there and broke the weapon, because it's just bolts holding a shaft in between these two 1/4-inch plates of aluminium. So yeah, that was also a thing that happened, and it all broke, and the weapon did not work very well. Also, while we're on this topic, I should probably also point out that the reason why the Black Gemini kind of stopped a couple of times towards the end of the fight is that armor bent up like that meant that all the armor was just kind of not mounted to the robot properly. So I was having different contact points in underneath the robot at different places, because the floor, as we've seen through this season, is a bit uneven. So there were times where I only had 1-wheel drive, and then times where I had 2-wheel drive, and then sometimes I'd have no wheel drive for a second as the whole robot wobbled around, and then I finally managed to get a wheel on the floor and drive a little bit. So that's why I was less effective in the second half of the fight, is basically the armor just got jammed in certain ways to make it really, really difficult to drive. So having talked about the Black Gemini, Hydroxyl, now we're going to talk about the Red Gemini, Fred, who was driven by Dom. It took actually the brunt of Tantrum's hits. A lot of Tantrum's hits on me were kind of weapon-to-weapon hits, or I'd like rode up and then the punch came in underneath and kind of missed me because I was already up in the air, essentially. So yeah, the Tantrum punches that really count were the ones on the Red Gemini, Fred. And here you can see a kind of beret of punches along the top armor panel where the Red Gemini was upside down and Tantrum came in and punched from the underside. And I'm going to zoom in on one particular one, which is the one that punched all the way through the 1/4-inch alley. As we said in the past, that is the first time, apparently, that has happened to a Gemini, that anything has got through the 1/4-inch alley top or bottom plates. So that was quite impressive, I thought. But you can see kind of the damage that Tantrum is doing there. It's getting some nice little kind of nicky punches on, but it's more throwing than it is doing shock damage to the actual armor or anything like that. Yeah. So there you go. That is that, I would say. That is the fight recap for this Tantrum versus Gemini fight. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you have any questions about anything, please do throw them in the comments down below, and I'll see what I can do about responding to all of those. And I hope I see you in the next video.